So I'm curious to know for you, Eric, what's been the hard lesson that you've had to learn, or maybe you have to keep learning, that's helped you become more masterful in the work that you do?
For me, it has to do with revealing my inner life in the moment with clients when I'm working with them. In other words, that I have a tendency to hide my immediate experience, to try to kind of try to work with it and bring it, either avoid it completely or to express it in a way that's very oblique. And so for me, just to be more open, more transparent, and as an example of that, it has to do with like when working with an executive and feeling and coaching an executive and having the experience of essentially being ignored in the moment, being pandered to in the moment. And to be able to bring that out in the conversation as it's happening, instead of trying to kind of weave around it, bob around it, manipulate him to be back in the conversation with me, simply to go, here's what's going on for me right now, Mr. X, whatever. Here's what's going on for me right now is that I'm having the sense that
whatever.
You're
bored. You're playing with me. You're using your power against me. Whatever it might be, you're speaking to the dynamic.
And then just be quiet. Yeah. Just like be quiet. Having revealed that, and it's something I have to learn again and again. It's I can recognize now the like you were saying, you feel it in your body. I can recognize it in the moment when I'm now in the place where I'm about to avoid my experience and hide it. I know that what it feels like, but it doesn't mean that and so it's not that, and that's the nature of these kinds of, like you say, repeating or recursive challenges, is that they're very redundant. They have a similar feel to them. And as we get to be more familiar with that feel, we can recognize it for what it is. It's the invitation to then, oh gosh, again? Yes, I have to do it again.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. It's this is, for folks listening in, this is really a masterful coaching skill. And the way I think about it, and like Eric, it's something I work on, and I'm still not there yet, but it's like, notice it, blurt it. And then if you have to ask about it. So if you can be attuned to how you're reacting internally, physically, mentally, how you're churning, just speak to it and put it on the table. And then, sometimes you just need to ask a question like, so what do you think? Or how does that land for you? Or what does that mean, do you think? And then see where it goes. Because, a friend of mine once said years ago, Eric, once is a pattern. And what I think you're pointing to here, or at least what I'm taking from it, is this sense of, if it's happening to me this once, it happens to others, and this minor microcosm of a relationship in the moment is one that plays out repeatedly for the person you're talking to. So allow me to hold that mirror up so you see it.
That's the service of it. Yes. Yeah. Because we're all incredibly redundant. And so it's not like, this is the first time he's been ignoring people or, exercising his power to hold them back. Yeah. No, this is something that's a natural pattern for him. And it's one that has worked really well, probably worked so well that no one's ever brought it out.
Right. I love that.
As a coach, you have that. That's your kind of service in a lot of ways, which is to experience the other person completely, their greatness and their woundedness, which is the thing they're avoiding, and for you to bring it out, not like you're being this way, but here's how I'm experiencing you. That holds the mirror up for them.
Beautiful.
And that's a beautiful service.
So that is such a powerful tool to share, but I do want to ask you, is there another process or tool or model, something that's a kind of a reliable favorite of yours that you use in your conversations that are coach-like?
Yeah. Well, the one that comes to mind actually is from your book, Michael, which I
Perfect.
truly love.
Thank you.
Which is because it's a 3-layered process of questioning where you say, what's the challenge you're facing, right? And or what's the issue, whatever, and they talk to you about it. And typically, at that point, people are typically speaking of the challenge sort of in a third person kind of way as things in the system and whatever. And when you ask the second question you offer, which I think is great, which is, so what's the real challenge here? And if you read these three layers, they can just look like words. A lot of it is the emphasis, the tonality, and the way you kind of lean into the language. So what's the real challenge here?
Right.
Oh, when they start to do that, very often they'll shift into talking about some kind of cultural or interpersonal dynamic that is sort of underneath, the technical problem. Then I love the third one, because the third one comes back to really what we started talking about, which is the wound in a certain way, which is the third question is to say, after feeding it back and reflecting and clarifying and getting a yes, then you go, so given that, what's the real challenge for you? Right? And that timing piece, I think, is the art of it. And once you drop them into the for you, you've taken them, boom, into their wound, and also the place of resource that they need to tap into, right? And then, so I love that sequence.
Well, here's what I love about your explanation of that sequence is I've never really thought of it as a sequence before. I just, in writing the book, and the question we put forth in the book is that final question, what's the real challenge here for you? And in the book, I do explain kind of how it got built up, and how each just as you've explained it perfectly, how each of the iterations goes a little deeper, and takes people into themselves, into the real thing that's going on there. But I've never thought of using it as a sequence before, so I'm loving that.
Good.
Hey, it's MBS here. If you've got a question you'd like me to answer on video, leave it in the comments below. I'll do my best to get to it.